Welcome to the Warrior Gamer Headquarters podcast. It is my distinct honor to introduce this episode's guest.
These are the ways that people entertain themselves, the way they relax, the way they connect with people. But what really drew me to it was the training benefits, the individual development benefits that come along with gaming. So a couple of my goals are, one, I want to give back. I want to give back to the veteran community. I think our service, the Army, I think has done a pretty good job of trying to use gaming, to try to use the internet, try to use the way that people communicate.
Where do you see gaming or would advocate for gaming in military training or Department of Defense or Armed Forces?
It's a good way for people that understand situational awareness. It's a good way to develop hand and eye control. It's a beautiful way to create teamwork between 5 or 6 people that are on a team doing something right here. These are all immediate benefits. The importance of exposing people to opportunities, I think, is absolutely essential. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Joe Votel. I'm a retired Army officer. I've been retired back in 2019. I'm coming to you from just outside of St. Paul, Minnesota, where my wife and I are originally from, and to which we returned after we retired, and we love it back here. I have been doing a variety of things since I retired. I've been doing some board work and some consulting, kind of things you would expect retired general officers to be involved in. But one of the things I've really tried to focus in on has been on veteran issues. And I have worked with a couple of kind of national veteran organizations, but I've really begun to focus more into my own local community here and try to support some of the veteran efforts that are ongoing right here. I'll just mention a couple of them here to give you a little bit of a background in terms of that. I'm supporting something called Bravo Zulu House, which is really focused on helping veterans who are going through, who've been through a sobriety program and are trying to address sobriety and what Bravo Zulu House does is it provides kind of long-term living location space for them that gets them connected into world-class medical capabilities, helps them get jobs, provides for them. It's a really, really unique setting here, and it's in rural Minnesota. It's kind of a self-sustaining thing, so it's pretty cool. Another one I'm really interested in is something I call the Veterans Defense Project, which is really focused on helping veterans who are having interactions with the justice system. They get into some issues and they got to get out of it. And this is not a way of excusing people from doing wrong stuff, but what it's designed to do is to make sure that when they go through the justice process, particularly through the court system, that the courts appreciate the background, the experience that these veterans are bringing with them. In many cases, their legal issues are related to are related to some of their veteran experience, and so we want to make sure that they're getting the benefit of the doubt on that. We really support the establishment of veteran courts around the country, and Minnesota's been leading in that. We've now got a number of other states that are kind of coming on board, but it's an underserved area, and I'm really keen to it. What brought me here tonight, really, I have been interacting with Josh Otero from Warrior Gamer, and I'm looking forward to the event at Fort Belvoir here in a couple of weeks. We'll have an opportunity to talk to the group, and that'll be great. But I'm really interested in gaming. I'm not a gamer, but I'm very interested in gaming because I have been associated with some organizations that are actually trying to use gaming as a kind of a social network, a social safety net, so to speak, for veterans who are suffering. And I think that's a really good idea. And I'm really keen on trying to look at new and novel ideas that can help our veterans. And that really sounded like one. And that's what's really kind of got me interested in all of this. So I'm looking forward to talking with you tonight, and I'm really looking forward to the event at Fort Belvoir in a couple weeks.
Awesome. All right, April. I know this is where you live right here.
Absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
so thrilled to hear you say that. That's actually what I'm doing my research on is trying to get more folks who are non-endemic to gaming appreciating esports and gaming and the leadership skills, connectivity, ability for, communities to stay together, ability for families to stay together, ability to create sort of that safe space where people don't feel the pressure that maybe a psychologist would bring on them, and they have peers that they can game with and relax and release and come together in a casual environment that
Yeah, yeah,
doesn't is
yeah.
not filled with that pressure.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's really interesting that that you say that. When I was up at West Point, I was up at West Point last spring, and I did some work up there and with the cadets, and I asked to go look at their. They have a gaming center over there, and the military esports kind of gaming center. So I went over there and spent some time with the folks that run it, and I was so impressed with what they're doing. First of all, it's a world class facility. But what the thing that I really took away from that I thought was really interesting was they really highlighted how important this is for leadership development for cadets. They're going through their their experience at the military academy, and what I was really surprised by was it's a lot of cadets are involved in it, but there's a lot of intercollegiate athlete cadets that are involved in it
hmm.
as well. So they're competitive, they're getting into this, they're being tested. It teaches some great skills, brevity, communications, teamwork, all the things that you're very familiar with. It was just really, really impressive, and it was a big motivator for a piece I wrote for the War on the Rocks here a couple of weeks ago that talked about the value of military gaming and how the Department of Defense, the Department of War ought to be embracing that and supporting that and encouraging that, in addition to all the other things we do to train soldiers and sailors, airmen, Marines, space guardians, but really give them an opportunity to use some of these cutting edge technologies out there.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, every branch of the service, with the exception of the Marines, has a team. And an amazing connector bringing our folks together. The West Point folks, they're fantastic too. They in the collegiate space. That's where I'm doing my research, in the collegiate space. And we don't do a single event where we don't see an Army recruiter or a Navy recruiter or someone, coming in to talk to these kids because they know that they have the focus, they have the ability to stay on target for 12 hours and research what they need to do to get good at these games. They have discipline in a way that is, not necessarily expected out of a civilian population. So when the recruiters are looking for folks, they often come to our collegiate esports programs.
That's right. And there's a huge percentage of yeah, men and women in service today who are gamers. I mean, we're talking 50, 60%. And the same thing, it's growing in the veteran community as well. Veteran community is a little bit older than kind of the force is, but the numbers are getting up there. And so these are the ways that people entertain themselves, the way they relax, the way they connect with people. So we have to be in those spaces, for gaming, for the social aspect of it. But what really drew me to it was the kind of the training benefits, the individual development benefits that come along with gaming. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I think
Even
it's
for a
brilliant.
baby boomer like me.
Yeah, I was just going to say I think it's brilliant, and I love that the space that you're in and all of the spaces you're in are so disparate. So I'm interested to see, with Veterans Defense Project and
Mhm.
Bravo Zulu and now Warrior Gamer. I mean, you have these three very, very different but incredibly important focuses that you have. Can you tell me a little bit about how you went through? And by the way, folks, if you don't know, like a retired general is they have first, especially a 4-star, especially CENTCOM commander, has the life, the oyster for a life. So like he can choose anything and anywhere he goes. And I'm interested to hear the judicious approach you took to where you would dedicate your time and why these three particular entities.
Yeah, my overall approach, Ken, is not quite as judicious as you might think that it is. You know, for guys like me, and I know a variety of my colleagues out there, I mean, there's so much interesting stuff out there. It's oftentimes hard to say no, and so you find yourselves getting overcommitted every now and then, but overcommitted in a good way because there's just lots of great things out there. What I did when I retired, I before I retired, I took the opportunity to talk to a bunch of guys who had been mentors to me and role models to me, and I talked to them about their transition. And one of them, Admiral Eric Olson, former SOCOM commander, talked to me about what my goals were for retirement. I hadn't really thought about it. You would think I would think about something like that, but I hadn't. And he kind of talked to me a little bit about that and shared some of his, and it really forced me to go back and look at kind of what my goals are. And so a couple of my goals are, one, I want to give back. I want to give back to the veteran community. I want to, that's the community that I'm most familiar with. I'm the one that I'm now a member of, and so I wanted to do that. And then of course, my wife and I knew we were coming back to our home state here, back to our home community. So I wanted to do something that connected me to my state, to my community. And so that's kind of how, and really in combining both of those things there, I've really kind of helped kind of knocking out two objectives with this involvement in these organizations. So it provides me a way to be connected to my community and do things here, working with people in my hometown or my home state, and it really gives me an opportunity to focus in on veteran issues. There's a ton of things out there. It's hard to say no when somebody reaches out there, and I do support a lot of other things. People will ask me to come and speak or ask me to come and do something. I'll certainly, if I can figure out a way to do it, I certainly will. These are really easy opportunities here to get out and be supportive and help organizations. I'll tell you the other thing that I've really gained an appreciation for since I've retired. It's the role of the civil society in supporting veterans, in supporting our communities. The Veterans Administration, I go to the VA hospital. I don't know if you do or yet or anything else, but those are great resources. It's really good. It's a good system, but it's a big system, and it's designed to take care of a lot of people across the country. So there's a lot of gaps in the coverage, and we rely on organizations like I told you about, like Bravo Zulu House, like Veterans Defense Project, like Warrior Gamer, like all these other organizations that are out there to kind of fill in the gaps, and they do a really, really good job of it, but they need support. Sometimes that's financial support, sometimes that's people just coming in and helping them out and helping them get through an event or something like that. And so when you have an opportunity to try to contribute to that, I try to say yes as much as I can, particularly when it comes to veteran issues.
You know, but I have a friend, I was at a conference I don't know if you met Victor Castro when you were at West Point. Um,
I know, Vic.
oh, you do? Oh, fantastic. He is the biggest advocate for esports and
Yeah,
military gaming
yeah,
that I've ever met. And one of the things that he really did at this conference at, I think it was Clark University we were at, but he made the connection between simulation and training and gaming as well. So finding the serious side of gaming and marrying that to the things that he's building there for broader reach and broader funding and broader support for gaming. Because still, even though you are awesome and unique in recognizing the value of gaming, that's not the case with everybody. There's a lot of folks that it's still an uphill battle to make the case for investing in gaming and giving folks time to release and relax through gaming.
yeah,
And
yeah.
he's doing that work brilliantly.
Yeah, Vic is great. I think you got to meet people where they are, in some of these things, and this is not something that I ever did in my life, and I don't want to. I'm a poser here, basically. I'm not. I don't want people to think I'm a
Yeah.
gamer or anything. In
You're an
fact,
ally. You're an ally,
I
not a
did buy an
poser.
Xbox recently, because I'm going to an event in February where I'm actually going to compete against some other senior officers. And so I've had my oldest son kind of took me through a little class on how to operate that, and my 6-year-old grandson was showing me some things here. So I got about 4 or 5 months to kind of get myself together in terms of this, but that's not what it is. But I think you have to meet people where they are. and the things that are interesting, the things that motivate them, the things that draw their interest to them. And I think that's an important part for the military. I think, our service, the Army, I think has done a pretty good job of trying to use gaming, to try to use the internet, try to use the way that people communicate as a tool for recruiting and exposing them to the opportunities that are out there through the military. So I think you got to meet people where they are.
Mhm.
So, as a strategic thinker and a visionary, like, I'm interested to know what you think. 10 years ago when I was at CENTCOM, 2015-ish, I mean, gaming really wasn't a thing all that much. And now the esports budget of the armed forces sports budget is 10 times more than the physical sports. So, like, it has ballooned massively. Where do you see gaming or would advocate for gaming in, like, military training or Department of Defense or armed forces? Like where do you see it going, and where do you think like it would be best
Yeah,
utilized?
yeah. Like I pointed out in my article, I think a couple things we have to do is we have to understand what the resources are that are out there. I mean, there's a ton of games, there's a ton of different things out there. We have to recognize that this is a part of how people develop themselves today. And this in this generation of soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, guardians that are out there. We have to recognize them, and we have to recognize that it comes along with all the other things. We want people to be physically fit. We want them to be able to shoot their weapon. We want them to be able to take care of each other and exercise medical skills. We want them to be able to execute the drills and the small unit tasks that we need them to do. Those are really basics, but we also want to stimulate their minds, and that's one of the things that I think military gaming, the gaming in general, can do. And so we have to recognize that. Second of all, we need to continue to resource it. I don't know all that. I know there has been a significant increase in this. I know the Army. I had an opportunity last week to speak with the chief technical advisor to the chief of staff of the Army. He was telling me about some of the things they're doing. I know the Army is just serious about it. They clearly recognize this and they're putting resources at it. But we have to do this more uniformly across the department. And then I think the third thing is what would really be helpful here, I think, would be to figure out some metrics, so we can begin to measure the differences that this can make for us. We try to measure performance. We try to measure how if our training is being effective and we're actually developing things. And I think we can begin to do that. So we have to think about those kinds of things as well. But it all starts with a recognition that this is where our servicemen and women are. This is something that a majority of them do, that they enjoy doing, and that there are some benefits. There are some real benefits that can be derived, and can complement the other things we do in developing them in their military skills. So it really starts there with kind of a recognition of it. And then there's some things we need to do with resources, with measuring it, and making sure that it's well integrated into all the other training requirements we have for our men and women.
I would love to see gaming. I'm a fan of gaming centers. I would love to see them in the VA hospitals. Like Ken's got a great story about four, I guess, three generations coming to four now, right, Ken?
Yeah.
Coming together to game. And I think that, those hospitals have such a burden already, but just, next to the chapel or anywhere down there
Yeah.
to make a little space for gaming and for connectivity. What do you think is needed from sort of above to really help integrate esports or gaming more fully into the military experience, particularly for soldiers who are in the VA hospitals and who have exited?
Yeah, well, I think certainly there has to be some recognition by the leadership that this is valuable, that we that we see the benefits of all of this. And I think there's a lot of people in my generation and others that look at this as don't because they haven't experienced, because they haven't seen their own kids do it or their grandchildren or whatever, they view it as kind of something we do to people do to pass time or waste time or keep themselves otherwise occupied, and they don't appreciate it. So I think, April, that one of the key things is people have to recognize and have to support it. I mean, getting military leaders to embrace this, I think, is both on the uniform side and the civilian side, to embrace this, I think, is really, really critical. I think our Army Chief of Staff, General George, certainly appreciates it. That's why he's put a lot of effort into this, and is trying to keep it at the forefront. But to me, that's really, really important. In terms of getting things into VA hospitals and other things, that I'm sure that could probably be done down the line. There's a lot going on at the VA hospitals, as you may know. When I often go out to the one in Minneapolis the big VA center that I use. I mean, it's fantastic. There's a ton of people out there, and you can't swing a dead cat without hitting somebody that's trying to help you, trying to get you where you need to go, trying to make sure that you're being taken care of out there. I mean, this is a great American institution. We need to continue to support that, but it's serving a big population. I sit in the waiting rooms out there waiting for my appointments. You see Korean War veterans, you see a lot of Vietnam veterans, you see people in my generation, you see some younger people. So you're serving a big group out there. So I think the challenge with the Veterans Administration is it's serving a big group. So getting a gaming center might not be the immediate priority they have, but it's certainly something they ought to be thinking about down the line. What would actually really be important is for the Veterans Administration secretary, VA secretary, to kind of acknowledge this. I mean, I know our current secretary is relatively new in the position, so he's getting around and seems to be doing a lot of great stuff for us. And Secretary McDonough, our last one, was very much, very, very, very supportive of this, and came to Warrior GMR and other things like this, and definitely supported that kind of stuff, and understood the benefit and was willing to stand up and talk about it. That's the kind of advocacy that we need going forward on this, because when people indicate, hey, this is okay, this is good, then they're going to support it, and dollars are going to flow, and people are going to appreciate it, and we can measure the benefits that come out of this. Those are the things I think we need to be thinking about.
Well,
Oh,
thank you.
I totally agree on that. And then, I've been part of this Air Force SAB, Scientific Advisory Board, for a couple of years, and then with the DSB. What I've said is, what we tend to do in DoD is take new stuff that comes along and we try to integrate it with our old construct, right? And sometimes it gets a little bit challenging. And just like you mentioned, trying to bring gaming into an existing VA construct can be a challenge. And I speak to them as though, gaming is a certain type of attitude. It's like a holistic perspective. And with gaming represents scale, rapid iteration with user inclusion with the enhancements. And it's like extremely fast thinking with low information with high memorization. And so when I started to become very good at gaming, I realized it's a lot of science, it's a lot of math, it's a lot of physics. And I was like, damn, I really, really have to up my game to even survive past a few minutes in these. And so, when I speak to some of the department's leaders, it's like, we have to take the construct of gaming and reimagine the way the DoD does business in that way. And I know there's a lot of folks, and when you were at CENTCOM, you did that. Your visionary focus there and technology integration, everything was really impressive. So I get it, and I'm curious on what your thoughts are on that, rapid integration, scaling, very quick thinking, holistic approach that gaming brings.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a quick story, Ken. When I was in Iraq in 2016, right after we became the CENTCOM commanders, when we had the first challenges with UAS systems, unmanned aerial systems were coming over our troops and dropping grenades or mortars on them. It's the first time, really since the Korean War that, we had American troops who were being attacked from the air. Again, these are drones, so it's not like a jet or something like that, but it's drones and they can cause casualties and kill people, and it's something to be concerned about. And we're real concerned about it, and we tried to reach back into the tech base and we got some solutions. But what I found is the best solutions to that were solutions that were generated on the ground. If we could get some equipment into the theater and we could get some sergeants playing with it, or we get some troops using it, they could begin to, first of all, decide if this is good or this is bad. And if it's good, then they can kind of figure out the ways to actually employ it. So, I said a different way here with gaming. I think one of the things we have to do is we have to reach out to our NCOs and others that are gamers that understand this, and begin the integration by talking with them about how we best leverage this to do all the things that you just described. I mean, I spent a morning at West Point looking at this. I walked away with an appreciation. Hey, this is a great way to teach young officers how to communicate in, briefly, using brevity, very quick, short, direct orders on things. It's a good way for people to emphasize quick decision making. It's a good way for people to understand situational awareness. It's a good way to develop hand and eye control. It's a beautiful way to create teamwork between 5 or 6 people that are, on a team doing something right here. These are all immediate benefits, and even in and of itself, even unintegrated with anything else, military gaming is beneficial to, the development of our leaders out there, our young soldiers. And so we ought to do that. But I think we got to get it into the hands of our users and help them help us, basically, and let them guide us in terms of how we do this. I mean, if we're waiting for a solution to come from the Pentagon, it's probably not going to happen. If we're waiting for it to come from the big services, they're good. These are good people. They care about things, but they're not in the best position to do that. You have to get it at the user level. This was the secret to success in SOCOM. The ability to get technology into the hands of operators and for them to say this is good or this is crap. And if it's good or if it's not, optimized to give direct feedback on how we make it better. And in my view, I think that's something we ought to do with gaming. We gotta get together a little committee or something of people that are do this and can begin to advise senior leadership on this and help them understand the benefits of it and then how it's best integrated.
That's fantastic. Your voice would be so powerful there. I think that's amazing. I'm getting all fangirly here. I told Ken I would behave. But I'm so happy to talk to you. And I think this is what we need in the world is more allies that say, yes, we honor and we appreciate what those folks are doing when they're gaming, and they're not just wasting their time. Engaging their game. They think faster than other folks. They make decisions faster. Ken and I know we've always said this, we're training superhumans right now to think, to move, to breathe, to communicate, to understand each other with no words passed. Some of our elite gamers are just amazing to watch. And how, I guess and Victor says hi, by the way, I just texted him. He said you had a great conversation and he's really excited for what you guys are going to build together. But that would be my question. How do you think moving forward, how can we best help you? Like Ken and I on Warrior Gamer, one of the things we're trying to do is support the efforts to help our veterans. And how can we best help the things that are your priorities right now?
Well, I think you're doing them. What brought me to gaming. I mean, it wasn't because I stumbled into a room at West Point or something and saw something. It was it was when I met some folks from August Interactive, and they were in the process of trying to develop a game that can be used by veterans, that it's not triggering, but that can be used to help kind of develop the social networks that veterans crave when they get out and want, and the connectedness that they want to have to people, and use that as a way to begin to address some of the challenges that veterans have. I mean, so I think what when I'm rambling a little bit here, April, but I think focusing in on real problems that we're dealing with, I think is really really critical. I mean, I recognize that people game because they like to game. They like doing that. I know some people like do military game because they're military buffs. I know, people have all different reasons for coming to this. It's not my position to judge their reasons for it, but I think it's my view that this can be beneficial and we can actually be used. I mean, seriously, when the folks at August Interactive laid out with their ideas, like that's brilliant. That's something we haven't tried yet. We haven't done that yet. We haven't tried to do that yet. Let's do it. I can get behind that. And that's really what brought me to it. So, I think being a problem solver and trying to address problems, I think is important, and how we use gaming to do that. I mean, I think that's how we begin to look at these great technologies that we have out here. We're talking about gaming right here, but look at artificial intelligence. You got people, white knuckling. They're concerned about it. Some people really embrace it. We gotta see where this can go. And we gotta look at the good things that can be done. Autonomy, the proliferation of UAS systems out there. I mean, what are the good applications of that can really do that? I'm of an older generation, and so I can think back to, I mean, airplanes were in existence when I was born, but it wasn't that much earlier than I. But in the early days of airplanes, we debated about what are we going to do with these things. We got locomotives. What do we need this for? We now have a car. We don't need. But it was you know people getting out and barnstorming. It was getting out and flying around and introducing this to people and seeing what the applications are. We can use this to crop dust. We can use this to move the mail. We can move people from one place to another. Looking at the positive aspects of it, we have to embrace that. People have to look at that. They have to get past the idea that, hey, these are a bunch of young kids that are just goofing off gaming. That's not it. They are developing amazing skills. I'm watching you guys here on this thing right here. You're texting with Vic. Ken is pulling up things. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm trying to just maintain my connection here with you guys. But that's what you are, and that's the excitement of all of this, and that's why you got to embrace these things, because kids today are so much more capable of doing things, and because we're in a technological world, and then we have to embrace that. That's to our benefit. They're excited about it. We have to be excited about it as well. So.
Oh, I
I
love
think
that amazing answer. Thank you so much.
I think one of the big benefits here, and April will chime in on this because she's at the university level, is me as a parent who's a gamer. I subscribe to just limitless parenting. And so if my kid wants to try to do geometry at 5, we do it, right? If either of them wants to do XYZ, rock climb 50 feet, like we just go, because I don't know what the limits are of human potential, especially as a previous armed forces athlete. I would see world records broken. I see these gamers and their unbelievable like mental abilities. I'm just like, oh my God, I am not limiting my kids. And so like my kid at 5 plays chess. My kid at 8 plays, he will play 2 or 3 people at chess at once while reading book. Like, I mean, it's absolutely mind-boggling, the freedom and the like out of the box thinking that the second and tertiary effects. And I love that military communities are embracing this, because I think it's just better for the entire ecosystem. Like you mentioned, the whole civil ecosystem that supports veterans and the family, spouses. I mean, like, I just think it's a big deal overall.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think there's so many things out there. I mean, I have 2 grandchildren. Penny is 8 and Jack is 6, and they're involved in everything. Their parents, like you, are providing them maximum opportunity to explore things, to try things, to be a part of things, to be on teams, to develop themselves individually. I just think that's really, really good. I think it's important. I think it's important. we do that and be supportive of those kinds of things. And they'll find out what the things are that they like, and they'll hone in on them, and they'll become experts in them, or they'll pursue them to their own heart's content or something like that. But I think it really is important to expose people to things. I just think this, one of the things I got involved in a couple of years ago after I retired was just the idea of service to the country. So I'm doing a little jump here on you, but I'm now moving from gaming to service. But the idea of people serving with that, and one of the things that I learned out of that, and I was working with a group down in Dallas on this, and some others that were interested in this. But one of the challenges was of service. Whether it's joining the military, being a police officer, fire service, first responder, intelligence community, diplomat. As a lot of times we don't. Our young kids don't know what the opportunities are. So they don't think that's a viable option for them. They don't know when they don't, they're, when they're not, we don't have as many people that have served in the military. It doesn't go as deep in families as we've had in the past. Or we don't have people that have necessarily served in the government or something like that. So they don't talk about it. And as a result, our young people don't hear about it. And it isn't that they don't care. It's oftentimes they just don't know. And so, the importance of exposing people to opportunities, I think is absolutely essential. I mean, when I was 10 years old, my dad and my brother took me out to the Naval Academy in Annapolis, and we were out there for the day. I'd never seen anything like that. A kid from Minnesota. I was like, what the hell am I looking at here? What is this place? What are they doing here? But by the end of the day, I can remember turning to my dad saying, this is where I want to go to school. This is what I want to do right here. It was that exposure. I didn't go there. I went to West Point, but which is a whole completely different story. But nonetheless, it was the exposure of that really got me going on it. And so I think that's, to your point, about being a parent, or whether it's gaming or whether it's something else, is the importance of exposing people to what the opportunities are out there. I think we don't do that. We people begin to self-select themselves out of things. We need to avoid that.
I think you're so right. My grandfather served in World War One. My mother was a Marine. She tried 3 times before she got in. I think that drive to serve is really amazing. And I'm wondering for you, what inspired you beyond the visits, but what inspired you to stay the course I mean, you're so accomplished. In your intro, you didn't even touch on how accomplished you are, but what inspired you to do some of the innovative things that you've done through the years and stick with it, like not just jump, you know what I mean?
Well, it was always the people. I'll admit to you, it was the people. I love the romanticism of being in the military. You want to be being in a formation. This is being in a formation, somebody calling your name out and saying, "Yeah, here, Sergeant, here I am. I'm part of the idea of belonging was really important to me, and it's something I just loved about all of this. I mean, my first day at West Point, I had instant buyer's remorse. I thought, man, what did I just get myself into? I don't like this. And then of course I got down and into it, and then you kind of collect the misery with all your classmates, and then you begin to like it, and you get out there, and I love the challenge of that was presented to me in the middle. I love the idea of leadership and being able to be in charge of an organization, be associated with something. When I was in my commission time, I had a little 7-year itch, literally at the 7-year point where I really considered maybe getting out. And what made the difference for me was a change in leadership. Frankly, I had a new officer came in over me, who was in charge of the group that I belonged to, and he took an instant interest in all of us. And not just what we were doing, but where we wanted to go, and that was enough. That was it. That was all I needed. And then I never looked back. And then I just love the idea of just being around young people and being involved in military organizations. I mean, I would consider myself to be a patriot. I love the mission. I was 21 years in on 9/11, and had the opportunity to be in the first wave that went to Afghanistan after that, and I mean, I can remember the feeling that we had, on that October evening, 24 years ago almost, and what that felt like you were doing something here with all of these, these, in this case, it was all men, people that you trained with and you've done all this stuff with, and you actually were doing something for the nation. So it was, those the kind of things that really motivated me. I thought it made a difference. I thought I was making a difference and helping people and, helping, people meet their own objectives. And so I just love that aspect of it. It's a hard thing to kind of put your finger on, but it's about the people. It's always about the people, isn't it?
Absolutely, it sure is. And
Yeah.
that just really quick follow-up, Ken. So we often ask how you deal with the lack of structure once you step out, once you retired. How was that transition
Yeah,
for you?
I when I came out, I was, I was a senior officer, so I had a lot of people around me helping me do things. I was a little bit helpless. I remember the first day after I retired, we were still down in Tampa, and we had to drive ourselves to an event, and it was like, oh, this is crazy, this is intolerable. And I couldn't find a parking spot, and I was like, God, I'm not sure I'm going to make it. And I made it. So we have a tendency to make senior leaders helpless because we do in our efforts to keep them focused on the job, we do a lot of other things for them, and so it breeds a little bit of helplessness. But I was managed to come over that. When I got out, I loved the idea of maintaining my own calendar. I really did. That I can control that, and I was very judicious about that. And a few months after that, I actually took on a job where I had an executive assistant, and she was great. She kind of took over my calendar and was managing all that. And I've now stepped away from that, and I'm kind of back to doing that now. But I kind of like the idea. I'm kind of a one army of one here. I kind of manage myself and do all my travel planning and everything else, and I like that aspect of it. But it can be a challenge. I mean, it's when you're used to people doing things for you, and you're trying to stay busy, and now all of a sudden you're accountable for that, and you're responsible for that. But this is a challenge that our veteran community faces. Frankly, it is you belong to something and then you step out, and all of a sudden you've broken that connection to your team. You've lost a little bit of your identity. You've lost a little bit of your purpose, and this is where sometimes veterans, have challenges, and it can be difficult. So it's important. For me, one of the things I think I did that helped me is I did do some transition planning. I didn't do a lot of it, but I talked to people, so I kind of knew what to expect, and I kind of had a path forward. I had people that were willing to help me. Almost everything I do came to me from somebody that I know. So I had people to help me with that, and I came back to an environment where I had a lot of family, and a lot of friends. So I had a good support network back here, and those kind of things were important. That helped kind of get over the issue. That's not everybody's experience. And so, again, we have to appreciate that, and it's challenging. This would have been much more challenging me if I didn't go back to my hometown. If I stayed in Tampa or I stayed someplace else, I think it would have been much more challenging. But in this case, I came home. I literally came home, and that really helped me a lot.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you.
This is great because my final questions here had exactly to do with this topic, and good timing too, because my beautiful wife who makes teas for me and everything dropped this off just as you were saying that, and I pointed that out. So nice job on the timing. You made me look really good on bonus points.
I know.
So I'm curious, like I did the same thing. Like I knew being on the boards here that transition was tough, but I think it was like a lot tougher than I thought because I thought I was prepared and I had listened to all these people, and like I miss it and I miss the access to the information. Like, and now I'm on the stupid news and I'm like, that is definitely not what really happened. That is definitely not it. So I'm curious, what has been a challenge? What has been a blessing? I know you touched on that. And then what's your advice for people following in your footsteps?
Well, I think a challenge has been deciding the things that you want to do. And um, there's, like I said, for me, my challenge is that whenever time I hear something that just sounds really interesting and it's something different, and I see that I can learn something from it, and so, it's at some point I know I have to choose, and and my tendency is to kind of overcommit myself, then to kind of back off in terms of that, and that's kind of what I'm doing a little bit of right now, and just kind of culling through my own portfolio here. But it's the challenge is choosing for me in terms of the things you want to pursue. I really when I talk to a lot of people now about their transitions or retirement, and one of the things I try to pass on is the advice that I got about figuring out what your 4 or 5 big objectives are, 4 or 5 things you really want to do in your next phase of your life. And that was really, really critical for me because I found myself kind of coming back to those all the time and saying, does this fit into what I want to try to do? And so I think the choosing and deciding, I think is a little bit of a challenge. The blessing, I think, is that I have been able to stay connected, not in a way that, like you have all the inside information and stuff like that. That's not going to be possible. I do some things that keeps me very connected. You mentioned the Defense Science Board. I was on the Defense Business Board for a while, and I do some other things in support of the department, and that keeps me connected. And I maintain my clearance and everything else. So that's been good. That's been good. But the thing that I've really been a blessing for me, besides being able to be around my family and see my grandkids and do other things like that. That's obviously number one thing, but has been seeing people that you've served with kind of rise up and do great things. I mean, I'm now been out of the military long enough, a little over 6 years, that people that were majors or lieutenant colonels are now colonels or brigadier generals. That people that were company commanders for me when I was a battalion commander are now division commanders. People that were brigade commanders when I was a general officer in Afghanistan are now chiefs of staff of the army. I mean, that's really satisfying to me. It's really a blessing, I think, to see people that you serve with now kind of stepping up and stepping into leadership positions and really kind of, picking the ball up and keeping it moving down the field. To me, that's been really, really satisfying.
That's great. All right. Well,
Nick, can I ask
General.
one quick question, Ken? I'm sorry.
Sure, sure, sure.
I know you're ready to go. I love your background. I'm wondering if you had to recommend a book for any of folks out there. What book would you recommend? What are you reading back there?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I'm reading right now. I'm gonna make sure I don't mess the title up of it. It was recommended to me. It's kind of an interesting book here. It's called From Strength to Strength. And it was recommended to me by a very good friend. In fact, it recommended to me last week. It's what I'm reading right now. But it talks about this very issue we've been talking. It talks about transitions. It talks about how people move from one thing into another and how they bring strengths over, how they transition strengths over. And in the book, the author talks about athletes. He talks about, when you kind of hit your, when he kind of paints a picture of, you kind of hit your cognitive peak around age 35. Yeah, Arthur Brooks. This is it right there. You kind of hit your cognitive, your most creative, your most, juices are flowing kind of stuff at that particular point. I'm like I now I'm well into my 60s, but the strengths that I have now is the strength of experience and the ability to understand context and to appreciate the big themes and things like that. So I think this is I'm about 3/4 of the way through this right now. I really like it. I think it's pretty interesting, and I think it's would be a good read for people that are thinking about transitioning right now. And it's not loaded with military examples. It's a little bit of something for everybody there, and I would really recommend it.
I'm buying it tonight. Thank you so very much.
I just got
It's like 5.5 hours on audiobook. That's kind of my criteria, man. If it's less than 7 or 8 hours, man, I'm all over
it. Okay, good, good. All right.
it. All right.
Well, sir, I appreciate it. I will see
Thanks,
you
Ken.
next week, and so will
Yep.
April. at the National Security Summit, Fort Belvoir. So super, super excited about that. I will be live casting from there. You will be a guest, and April will be there as well. So hopefully we'll hit 1 million views this time. I think we can do it. And if not, we will do some marketing and we can get it up as high as we can.
Absolutely.
Well, I look forward to seeing you guys, and thanks for what you're doing. Thanks for hosting me tonight. This has been pretty enjoyable. So really great to be with you. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you
Doing
so
this-
much. I can't wait to meet you in person.
Yeah.
Have a good night. Warrior Gamer Headquarters podcast out.